Are you seeking a better way to accelerate your sales, to scale your business, to live a life with no limits? Accelerate Sales Podcast features global experts who have cracked the code to recurring revenues with proven sales systems and get you on the fast track to scaling. Now let's accelerate your sales with today's episode.
Hi, I'm Paul Higgins and welcome to the Accelerate Sales Podcast, episode number 411. You're going to learn 3 key things today, and actually a little bit more than that. Why you shouldn't rely on partners for leads. So that's SaaS partners sending you leads. How to get inbound leads with a very innovative strategy. Actually, you're going to love it. And why targeting 200 companies is going to help fill your funnel. If you're a first-time listener, please subscribe. If you're a regular, love those reviews, especially on Apple. Take notes. But we will have a summary in whatever app you're listening to, and you'll also get a full transcript by going to paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast. And you can also do it through the homepage. And before we go into the interview with Doug, I'd like to thank our sponsors. The first is the Cloud Consultants Collective. So if you're a cloud consultant, you're looking for a free community on Slack to help you answer all your business questions, it is for you. So go to cloudconsultantscollective.com. And the other one is SendSpark. SendSpark's a fantastic video platform that allows you to send personalized videos at scale. And it's what we use, and it works incredibly well with great analytics. And you can get 6 months for free by going to paulhigginsmentoring.com/SendSpark. So today's guest is Doug, and he's the founder of Image Business Development, and he's directly helped or advised a dozen of companies who excessively sold for over, that's it, the $1 billion. He started as a HubSpot partner in 2011 and is now an elite partner with 22 amazing team members. And he's really great at picking horizontals, and you'll find out what that is. Doug also knows the difference between what works and what sounds good and doesn't work. And he's got a great way of telling you that. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Doug Davidoff from imaginellc.com. Doug, so great to have you here.
Paul, it is a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I heard you on I think it was a podcast, HubSpot, the Unfiltered podcast. You just blew me away. I loved it. So I reached out and really excited to dig in deeper for, you listening today, who's a partner. You could be a HubSpot partner, but you could be a partner across any SaaS platform. So what I'd love to know first, Doug, is, who do you love to work with and what problems do you solve for?
We love to work with investment-minded companies. The way I look at it is you're either an investment mindset or an income mindset. Yeah. So we love to deal with companies that are trying to solve the problems that are gonna hold them back 12 to 18 months from now. So they're really thinking ahead. We work best in the mid-market space. So typically a company is going to have somewhere between 25 and 250 salespeople. That's true whether we're working with them directly on this, on a sales side engagement or not. We've just learned that you tell me the number of salespeople, that tells me a lot about the motion and issues that a company has. Yeah. And then they're typically selling and offering. It could be a product or a service. They're more towards the premium side, so they're trying to deliver a point of view. They're a high consideration purchase, so there's typically complexity, risk involved. That's actually one of our favorite things. Is what's the risk associated to the purchase decision? How much change is involved? So we love discontinuous innovation. So everybody wants to grow. We like to to me everything, and I'm sure this is going to come through in the interview, everything comes down to making a trade-off decision. And when you want to grow, it's hard to say, where do we decide, that the effort or the squeeze is worth the juice, if you will. How do you find that? So when growth is an imperative, it really helps to lock things in, and that's where we excel.
Yeah, look, we're recording this in 2022. We've just come off or still dealing with a pandemic. And now, let's face it, in the US, things are pretty tight. Inflation's gone through the roof. They're raising rates. Like, how's that impacted companies' perspective on growth at the moment?
So, that's a fascinating question. And I'm glad you asked that. So one of the other things that makes us different is we were actually around the last time that there was an increased interest rate environment, tightening money supply environment, which was the early 2000s, as well as going through the 2008, 2009 recession. In its own way for us, Paul, it's actually a positive.
Right.
When I used to work at Merrill Lynch, I used to be a financial advisor, and I always kept slogan above my door, above my office, said, "Don't confuse brains with a bull market." I think it was Warren Buffett who said, if you jumped off an 80-story building for the first 79 stories, you can convince yourself you're flying. And so when there's a tailwind, when there's a big rising tide, you don't really get rewarded for making good decisions. And in some cases, you actually get rewarded for making what would otherwise be stupid decisions. And
yes.
And so we actually like it when there's some turbulence and some difficulty, because, the insights that we bring, the type of approach that we take, that's where it excels more. The other thing that's interesting is I have found that growth is like, the growth of a business is the equivalent to the muscles for a human. And, even when you're sick or hurt or whatever, you still want to do things to keep motion going. Because if you don't, your muscles are going to atrophy, which is going to make it harder for you to recover. And here's a fascinating statistic about recessions. Most businesses that are, permanently damaged from recessions, businesses that go out of business, they actually don't go out of business during the recession. They go out of business in the recovery.
Right. And why is that?
They bunker down. They fight to survive. They do all of those things, but they didn't, that growth muscle atrophy. And so as the market begins to turn around, and it never turns around overnight, there's always a phase through that. Yeah. They don't have the wherewithal to continue growing. So in the same way that even, if you're in a ship and you've got a major headwind, and you still have to figure out a way to move forward. You're not going to move forward at the same velocity. You're not going to move forward at the same rate, but you still need to have that growth mindset and that growth imperative. Or what you find is when things kick back in and you try to step on the gas, suddenly the plumbing's not working like it's supposed to.
Yeah. And look, if we turn to you as a HubSpot partner, I know that you're an elite HubSpot partner. You've been with them since 2011, which I love that year because that's the year that I left corporate to run my own business. Yeah. It was a great year. Well, actually, the first 6 months wasn't so great. But anyway, we'll go past that. But, your go-to-market strategy, I heard you on the Unfiltered podcast talking about, don't rely purely on the SaaS partner. And if you're doing that at the moment, that you're probably getting referrals. Maybe your partner's starting to dry up, sending you some leads, and you're probably thinking, what do I do? That's why we brought Doug on. So, Doug, for you, your go-to-market strategy, just take us through that.
So, our go-to-market strategy is, it's based with a very high level of focus. So I think that the single most important question every business executive, growth executive can answer every day is, who do we want to be a hero to? So for example, when you asked me the question about my ideal profile, the place where I struggle with it is I could talk to you for 3 days about that profile because we take it really, really seriously.
Yes.
And over the course of our, roughly 18 years of existence, we probably have changed that profile 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And when we change the profile, everything about the company changes because that is what defines us. Yes. So it's, who's the profile? What's the problem that we solve? If you go back to our beginning, the problem that we solved was sales structure. How were salespeople selling? We began to move towards how companies were managing lead generation towards the full funnel. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we started moving towards what is now being called revenue operations, but really at its core, was about business process design and, how do you, in its simplest way, I was just telling someone this the other day, what we do for customers is we get them out of their own way.
Yeah.
I find most companies that are struggling to grow are probably working harder than they should. Like once they get on the growth track, it actually becomes a little less difficult, or things kind of norm. So we get really, really focused and spend most of our attention to understanding the problem that our customers have that they haven't quite fully identified. So we take a very educational approach.
Yeah.
We deliver a very strong point of view. We seek to position to outcomes. I think one of the things that I've seen, especially with people who are implementing technology, it's really easy to start talking about process and what the wrong process is and why the right process. And the trouble there is it just gets lost in translation. So really to hit on, what are the outcomes, what are the gaps that are there? And then, so we've got a target approach to companies that we're focused on. We've got a segment that goes out there. We've got, an inbound engine that comes in. And I remember early in my sales advising career, back before the internet was the way you went to market, I talked about building a referral net and an influencer net. And the idea that I said was if you got thrown into a world where you knew no one and you had to start a business, before you learned who were the best customers that should work with you, what you should do is find who are the people that are already working with the best customers for you, and find ways so that they can help spread your message. And that has led to the partnership with HubSpot that we have now, generating an awful lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And if you where you say that educational approach, right? So how do you find that out? Because we're all looking to dig deeper into our ideal client, whatever you call that, right? And you are probably doing that, and Doug's expressed it. But what's your approach to that? What's some tips you can give us to improve that? Because some of you listening may be at the start of your journey, not as progressed as Doug, and not an elite partner, right? You might be just starting out. How do you get that education on your ideal client?
Well, how do you get the education? I really think you have to embed yourself in there. And I will share with you, I don't have 25 salespeople. We're at about 22 total employees. So I don't even have the number of employees for salespeople. We are not our market. But we strive to really dig in and understand. We listen very closely. We watch what they watch. I see sometimes people that don't have an affinity for their market. It's someone that they sell to. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but it makes it harder to take that educational approach because, we keep striving to be experts in what we do. And I don't think being an expert in what you do is what generates great opportunities. I think it's when you know your customer better than they know themselves.
Yeah.
When you can put into words the spidey sense that they're having, that thought in the back of their head where they kind of knew that something was wrong. One of the discoveries that I made is that most of our customers, especially our best customers that, not only work with us on a project, but sustain after that, they were actually looking for us for probably 1 to 2 years before they found us. They just didn't know that the approach that we took existed. They knew there was something wrong. They didn't know what was right.
Yes.
So that's how we get the basis of it. But then the other insight that I would give, and I see this mistake consistently, is again, we try to demonstrate our expertise and thought leadership. The problem with thought leadership is the takeaway is someone reads your stuff and goes, wow, these people are really smart. They know a lot. That doesn't actually influence behavior. What we want to do is we want to deliver an insight. What is it that they think they know that ain't so? We want someone, candidly, the right person probably disagrees with what we're saying before they embrace it. There's a little bit of a wait, no, that can't, that's not right. Or, hey, that doesn't apply to me. because what we're doing is, we want the takeaway instead of, gee, we're smart. We want the person to go, wait, we might be doing this wrong.
Yeah.
We might need to think about doing this differently. So we also focus a lot on, our messaging is not about why should you buy from us. It really is, why should you talk to us? Why should you consider this? Why should you spend time investigating? We know if you're the right profile, and we don't want you to buy from us if you're not the right profile, but if you're the right profile and you start talking with us in a serious conversation about growth, we're going to win far more than our fair share in that process. And so we just kind of let nature take its course.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And when you touch back on the features versus outcomes or results or benefits, however you want to do that, that was interesting. Like, I worked for Coca-Cola for 18 years. You're not going to talk about sugar in a can for 18 years, right? By default, you had to talk about or understand the consumer and then understand the customer to the consumer, because it was such a basic product, right? Whereas you're right. I think, for you might be thinking, I know a lot about my product. I come from a technical background. I may not have been in a sales role, right? And all of a sudden my default, because when we're nervous, our default is to go to what we know best, right? It's sort of like our coping mechanism. And often that's about your product. And I think you articulated really well. It's not about the product, it's about the outcomes. And I find that HubSpot, because by default, they're very good at that. They're an inbound company. I find a lot of their partners are good at that as well. And, what's your favorite platforms for thought leadership? Where do you get your contrarian, maybe, views out?
So where's my favorite place? Well, I don't really have a favorite place, because one of the things that I find that happens, and I work really hard to avoid this, is you start following something, it's really resonating with you, and so you begin to over consume that. And before you realize it, and Lord knows with social media today, we're just walking echo chambers. Yeah. So one of the things that I try to do is I try to find pieces that disagree. So when I read an insight, or I read something from somebody and I go, hey, wow, that's really good, I'll begin to look for, okay, who's somebody that, what's another point of view? I was actually just talking with my son about this, as he's really, realizing that, hey, learning is not a thing that you just do in school to, pass the next test so that you can graduate. And so he's now on that aspect of learning for the sake of learning. And he's gotten really, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He's really into aspects around, behavioral science and why do people do what they do? And, we were just on vacation and he was telling me about this concept and that concept and, really evangelizing. And I said, hey, Drew, what you're doing, it's great. Here's what I want you to do, though. I want you to get to the point where you're listening to this and you're reading this, and I want you to have a point of view. How do you disagree with that author? Right? Where's that opportunity to disagree? Where's the nuance in there? When is that not right? And so, I love Gartner stuff because they're wrong about 70% of the time, but they do a really good job of, if you want to talk about somebody that knows how to deliver an insight, Gartner does a tremendous job. Yeah. But, where are the places where you agree and disagree? I enjoy HubSpot. I try to read a little bit more about where my customers are going. So I actually find, Harvard Business Review has gotten really good with more consumable content. I would follow them on Twitter. Everybody, if you're not, that's a great place to. And again, what I'm looking for when I'm reading it is not, what is it that they're saying so that I can parrot it. I've noticed that there are just too many people in the marketing space that they just want to be Seth Godin. And I'm like, well, you know what? Seth Godin is Seth Godin. He's got that ground covered. How does that apply to what we're doing? How do we take that thought? So if you don't have a strong body of content yourself right now, the way that I think you can become a tremendous creator is start off by curating what's out there that you can point people to. But then when you can deliver a point of view, what is your point of view on their point of view? I think that's where you really get your voice, and you begin to, to truly add value to the mix of what's out there and to who your customers are.
Yeah, great. And, leading back to your point of view, which was, most partners, HubSpot partners, et cetera, rely too much on their partner for referrals, right? So tell us why you believe that, and tell us more importantly what we can do about it.
Well, I mean, I would say this probably, certainly applies to more than just HubSpot partners. I can tell you why I believe that is that I got, HubSpot has a very rich partner program.
Yeah.
Don't tell them this. I think candidly, it's probably a little bit too rich. And
sorry, what do you mean by that? Actually, a little bit too rich. What do you mean by that?
So what when you become a partner and their revenue share, it's like, hey, thank you very much. I joke around when I'm being skeptical or cynical that there's an avenue of partners, I call them HubSpot franchisees, where it's kind of they're bleeding the orange, they're telling the story of HubSpot, but it's like mimicking it, and one of the key things that they're pursuing is the revenue share.
Yeah.
What I try to do, first off, like I will not partner with anybody on the basis of revenue share. I mean, if you want to give me revenue share, that's fine. Yeah. But I'm in the business of delivering a set of services, a set of things, and that's what I'm looking to do. How do I grow my business? I realize, and I've talked with Brian Halligan, Yamini, and Dharmesh about this as well. The executives are there. And I say, hey, look, I understand that every morning when you wake up, the question that you ask yourself is not, how can we make the world better for Doug? And they joke around and I go, no, we ask that all the time. And I go, well, maybe you do right now, but it's, obviously you're making decisions for HubSpot. Yeah. I'm making decisions for Imagine right now. And for a long period of time, we've been on, a reinforcing journey, and that's great. But I never forget, my job is to serve my client. Right. So there's that.
Yes.
And, I would go to partner meetings and I talk to partners, and I would regularly hear a complaint of, why aren't they sending me more business? You should be sending me more business. And my thought was always, I was exposed to tech partnerships before the reseller element was the thing. If you go back to the days of the Microsoft partnerships, the SAP partnerships, it was only and all about implementation. It was, 9 times or more out of 10, it was after, purchase, it was in market. And your job was, you worked with customers to help them make sense and get those things set up correctly. And so, it's easy, being the beneficiary for fair amount of time where HubSpot has been bringing us in many cases. Well, first off, they brought us in because of what we've done, right? Rather than, us working, saying, hey, send me more business.
Pretending who you want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? It took us probably, God, I mean, we've been partnered with them for 11 years. And it was probably a good 5 or 6 years of real intensive, delivering a point of view, being helpful, that the point of view that we were delivering as HubSpot got to a point where they started dealing more and more with the type of customers that we were dealing with, they started recognizing, wait a second, this is the stuff Doug was talking about. This is the stuff Imagine was talking about. And so, and by the way, we started off by, we were there to help. You could ask us a question, whether you're going to refer the business to us or not. And actually the first 2 really good opportunities we got brought into, we had to come in because something had gotten screwed up. Right. So someone else had made a mistake. We needed to step in. We needed to move a little bit faster. We had to operate a little bit outside of our realm, of how we normally operate, to take care of that, which led to more opportunities. But the other thing that I talk about too is when you start working with a tech partner, certainly one that has the type of opportunity to move real business. And I do think you need to be careful. Like us partnering with HubSpot is really helpful because HubSpot is a core system.
Yes.
I've had a number of tertiary, complementary, specialized applications, and they would talk to us in the same way. They would even, as a way to try to get us to use them more, they would dangle or offer some of those referrals. And of course, initially we engaged with that. And what I found was they weren't really great opportunities for us because they were coming from a very, small segment of what was being done. And we're a core business process focus. And so there was a match, all business is not good business. But the other thing is, I think that a lot of people have this idea that life would be easier if only they would get me. And there's a few things that happen. You have to understand if a partner is really delivering business to you, that you have two customers, right? And if you're not willing to accept and adapt to two customers, then you're going to have a lot of friction.
Yeah.
One customer is the tech company and the sales rep, and you've got to understand, the sales rep has a job. They've got to achieve, and they've got to achieve their number. They are looking to make a sale. Now, I don't think you should ever do anything that you're not comfortable with, but I've seen partners get brought in by a sales rep and then basically, inadvertently torpedo the opportunity. And I had the opportunity with some of them to ask, why'd you do that? And they were like, well, that was the wrong thing for the client. And I'm like, okay, if you feel like it's the wrong thing for the client and you're brought in by the partner, you owe it to the partner to tell them that you're not the right person for that.
Yes.
Right. And so it's totally okay to take yourself out of it. And if you're not willing to do that, I don't think you're going to have a sustainable partnership.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I know I'm kind of rambling here, but and then the last element is when that spigot turns on, and this was the surprise that I had, when that spigot turns on, it turns on.
Yes.
Right. One of the aspects about the tech partner being your customer is they're not looking for somebody that can support an implementation every now and then. They don't have the time or capacity to think and manage that. They're looking for people that can be go-to, which means there's a little bit where you have to be able to manage your business so that you can always say yes. Because and today for very legitimate reasons, reps will reach out to me and they say, well, do you have capacity? I'm like, come on, man, I always have capacity. And we, there's things I had to do and some risks I had to take to be able to back that up. Because if I can take business sometimes and not other times, I'll probably still get that, but it's not going to be of the same caliber in that same place. And so, I know some people that they run very nice businesses. They're small businesses. They like the size and scope. They pride themselves on their boutiqueness.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's great. You need to understand, that's not a match. Here's the thing. And it's, it's like you find your wife when you're no longer looking for a girlfriend, right? Yeah. You find, all those things when you stop looking. And it was amazing because just as our go-to-market strategy really started kicking in and we started seeing that acceleration, that was the moment that all of a sudden, our partner referrals and our partner introductions started really kicking in. And again, it was because we had the ability to deliver. They knew, all those things came about. And candidly today, if you were to ask me what is my number one risk is we're actually, the amount of business that we're getting as a result of those introductions and which I'm very grateful for. And please, if you're listening, HubSpot, don't stop. But we're actually getting ready to make the investment, back into our go-to-market that we're controlled to get our self-made opportunities back up. Now we had to go through a process to really level up and we doubled, almost tripled our team size and our back-end systems to be able to support that. And we're now kicking in so that we can, keep both of those pipes going. But I think when you begin to look to your partner as, you should be sending me business, that entitlement attitude will never help you. And it's not until you don't need them that I think you can truly absorb what a partner can bring to the table, and you can truly pursue sustained growth.
Yeah, look, really well said. A couple of things there. So we were, I think in life where it's too good, it is too good, right? So we're a partner for a particular brand or a particular platform, 80 leads a month, fantastic. All of a sudden, those 80 leads effectively disappeared overnight because a new board member came on and said, we're going to change strategy, right? So all of a sudden, sorry about the image, but, we got our pants pulled down. So we had to build our own independent, which was the best thing that ever happened. At the time, we thought it was the worst thing. It actually turned out to be the best, which is exactly in line with you. And also, you've got to, like you said, you've got to decide who you're going to be. You're going to be a volume shop where you just take everything from the partner and it's across every vertical, right? Or what you said is, no, you pick a vertical, you intimately know them better, and just say, hey, we just will take these type, and you generate your own. And now there's neither right or wrong. I know which one you've gone down. I know which path we ended up going down, which was successful. But I think you've got to make that decision, because you can't sit on the fence, right? You can't be halfway. So if you're in this growth stage and you're, own business at the moment and you're thinking about it, just, I think Doug's making some brilliant points of just buyer beware. Yes, you'd love lots of leads from your platform partner, but it doesn't come without headaches, as Doug's articulating. And
can I throw one thing in?
Yeah, go for it. It's about you, not me, so you can throw in as many things as you like.
But you said something. I don't want to miss the opportunity for it, because you talked about you can be a volume shop, say yes to everything, or choose a vertical. What we actually did was we chose a horizontal. Right. And what I mean by that is we defined a problem set that we solve. And what we worked extraordinarily hard on was communicating, and we are constantly reinforcing, when this is the situation, you shouldn't be thinking about anybody else. Yeah. But it also meant we had to be willing to tell you what wasn't the right business for us. Yes. Right. No, we're not the right person for that. So a vertical is definitely one way to do it. But I would also say that, that horizontal is another way that you can kind of accomplish the same thing.
Yeah. And in your sales process, right? Like, you help others, set up their sales process before you implement the tools or platform, which is the right way to go. But what about your internal process? Like, tell us, once again, you're listening and you're thinking, God, what can Doug help me, given he's been in this game for 11 years? What can he help me expedite? What is that in your sales process? What have you learned that, few others know?
So there's two things. One is we always go in and we begin with a assumed business case, an assumed point of view. We go through a diagnosis phase, which is different from a discovery or needs assessment or a profiling phase, in that, we really want to identify what is the underlying problem that needs to be solved and what's happening because of that problem. And we know that the probability and quality of that win is going to be based on how robust that diagnosis is. The other element, and I actually have an article on my website on, a complete guide to building a high impact sales process that actually shares our entire sales process and philosophy behind that, if you're interested in it. But the other thing is, I take what I think is a fundamentally different approach than most salespeople or most sales organizations. And that is, I go in from the beginning asking the question, what's wrong with this picture? What do I see here that indicates that they're not going to take action, they're not going to buy? I think it's really easy to go in and look for the reasons that they will move forward, the reasons that it does look good. And just what I've learned is you end up delivering a lot more value. The customer appreciates you more. They don't feel like they're being sold to when you're working to identify where are the barriers, what are the issues that would prevent action from taking place, and being clear on that. And by the way, the place where I get the most nervous is when I'm early in an opportunity and I'm looking at it going, okay, well, what's a reason that they won't do this? I can't find one. I know I'm in trouble if I don't have a clear picture on okay, what are the factors that would prevent us from winning? I like to think of managing the sale as the equivalent of playing a hand of Texas Hold'em.
Yeah. And I think probably your financial planning background helps as well, because you're always looking at
probably.
Risk reversal there, or risk mitigation, I should say. And about, lead gen at the moment, what are some of your best sources of leads? We've talked about inbound, but what else are you doing? What else are you seeing that's really working, that once again, take that contrarian cap. Well, what are you doing that many others aren't? And as Buffett says, be brave when others are fearful.
So two things. So our inbound engine continues to work really well. We continue to deliver a unique point of view. We continue to challenge ourselves and look to raise our game. I launched the RevOps Show podcast, which is my third podcast that I've done now, several months ago, and we're beginning to see that traction. And we give a lot away. I mean, that's our lead generation strategy, is give a lot away. Now, what I'll say is we give a lot away about the problem, right? Not as much about the solution, which is a good place. Yeah. And the other element is we've gotten clearer, and we've been able to articulate and define more and more, who is our customer and who are the people that fit our customer. So we're doing a modified outbound. So very much of an inbound philosophy to a targeted group of companies and stakeholders, and looking for opportunities. How can we help them to generate it? And then from helping them generate a conversation. Yeah.
And are you doing, when you're doing that outreach, is it email? Is it social media? Omni? Like, how are you doing?
It's email. It's email, social media. We are in the process of hiring, and we're restaffing our sales side. So we're going to be hiring 1 or 2 new account executives, which will kick in a little bit more of a directed outbound to there. But, the way I like to look at it is, and what I'll be teaching my salespeople when they come on again, is if you can generate a relationship with 200 companies that view you as somebody that they could ask a question of to get an answer for something that matters. What I know is, in the market that we work in, somewhere between 3 and 5% of that market is going to have a problem that means something in that month. And so if I have a relationship with 200 companies and 3 to 5% happen, that means 6 to 10 companies are going to reach out and they're going to say, hey, we're having an issue. What's your thought on? And what I know is a third to half of those will proceed into beginning to take action about something, which means you'll generate 2 to 5 distinct opportunities. And if I've got a sales rep developing 2 to 5 distinct opportunities a month, they're going to blow away anything that we're going to be able to handle from them anyhow. And so spend less time worrying about getting the sale or setting the appointment, and spend more time just establishing the basis that your peers and you can be, you can mutually help each other. Have conversations, and business will happen. You can't control whether they have a problem this month or not. You just have to be there, be positioned, so when it happens, they think of you.
Yeah, beautifully said. Absolutely love it. Well, what we're going to do now is shift gears a little, and we're going to go into some rapid fire questions and therefore answers. I always say it's like a sip of beer, right? So, us Aussies love beer, and I've never met an American that doesn't drink beer. But anyway.
I'm all in.
First ones. What are some sales habits you do every day to help you accelerate your sales that you haven't mentioned?
Wow, that I haven't mentioned. That's a challenge. You didn't tell me that this is supposed to be rapid fire. I try to read something that I know my customers are reading.
Yep. Brilliant. What about, obviously you use HubSpot yourselves, but what other software are you using at the moment that helps you accelerate your sales?
So we're huge fans of 7th Sense, which is an email delivery optimization tool. Email is such an underutilized channel, and it's harder than ever to make it work. So we use that. Avoma is a tool that we use that saves me time having to take notes. Sharing documents is a big issue and only getting bigger. And there's this new company, Cloud Files, that actually has a really, really sweet interface. And our ability to deliver and manage. Even the other day, I had somebody who they had some huge file that they couldn't get out, and so I'm able to actually give them access to upload it into my instance, and it automatically gets affiliated to the right record, et cetera, et cetera. So it saves us all kinds of time, and is really conducive.
Brilliant. And we've already talked about where you get your sales tips, so I'll skip that one. But if I could grant you one wish for your business, right? What would that be?
I don't get to say more wishes.
Sorry, for those listening to audio, I just put one finger up, and it was my first finger.
There you go. The one wish would be clarity. I hate it when people are playing games. I kind of go to the schools like, hey, let's put our cards on the table, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So clarity and directness.
Yep, brilliant. And the last one is, you've been in this game for 11 years. You're very, very good at it. What's something you wish you had have started earlier?
So I'm going to share one thing I wish I'd started earlier, and the other thing is something that I have to keep reminding myself all the time.
Yeah.
What I wish I started earlier is understanding the importance of the plumbing. I grew up and I'm naturally a strategy and idea guy. And so I've always been, hey, it's the great idea. It's the best strategy that wins. And it's actually just, it's the smaller things that make the bigger difference. I wish I had known the importance of plumbing earlier. And the thing that I always have to remind myself is the focus should be velocity, not speed. And that means far more often than not, slow and steady wins the race. As a matter of fact, I love the Navy SEALs. The U.S. Navy SEALs have a mantra: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Yeah. And what I find is that when everything takes longer than I thought it was going to take. But when you keep the focus on consistency, I look back to what we were doing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I can't believe we're doing what we're doing today. Yeah. And I just need to remind myself that that's the key. That consistent, ongoing element is what makes the difference.
Yeah. Yep. So well said. And I think whether it's a horizontal or vertical, right, that consistency helps because you keep compounding. And then, like you said, you've changed 4 or 5 times in the 11 years. Your ideal client, and I do a thing, and I love the fact that you throw it all in. But look, we could talk forever, Doug. It's been absolutely my pleasure, but also you listening or watching it as well. You've shared so much gold in this. So you can find out more about Doug other than all the links that are in the show notes, of course, but you can find out more at imaginellc.com. Twitter, follow Doug Davidoff is his Twitter handle, and don't forget to check out the podcast as well. So we'll have all the links to that. But Doug, you've been an absolute joy, and thanks for entertaining us today.
Paul, thanks for the questions. They were great. It's been a pleasure.
I love that interview with Doug. How was his energy? It was fantastic. And he shared lots and lots of value. He loves what he does. I love that around his content strategy, which I'm going to certainly do more of. I think I'm too even keel on that one. And also around those 200 companies, 3% of people are ready to buy at any one time and really help them, right? So share what you've learned with from Doug on LinkedIn. He'd love that for you. And the other thing, you can find out more at imaginellc.com. Other than all the links, etc., will be in the app that you're listening to. It'll also be in the our podcast website, and it will also will have you have the opportunity to get a full transcript. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast, and why not share it with others? Right? I say it at the end of every episode. So if it's your first time, but now why not share it 1, 10, how many other people, especially if they're HubSpot partners? I think that'd be great. But also if they're just, looking for great tips on how to improve their selling, I think this is a brilliant one for them. So please do that. Please check out past solo shows that I do on the Accelerate Sales podcast. And also don't forget that free the free community for cloud consultants, too many C's in that, at the cloudconsultantscollective.com. Next week's guest is Tyrone Giuliani, and he's an absolute gun on LinkedIn outreach. So, and he's got a very unique way of doing it. So you have to listen to that one. And the last thing, as always, please take action to accelerate your sales.
I'm fired up after today's episode. What about you? But hey, before you go, learning is just one piece of the puzzle. Now it's time to put today's strategy into action. Head over now to today's show page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast and share how you'll put it into action. Be sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe, rate, and review the show. Tell me what your favorite episode is. And don't wait 1 minute more to gain access to your pulse check at paulhigginsmentoring.com. This could be the difference between struggling to get more leads and making this next quarter your best one yet.